Hi, I'm Ellie from crystallinks.com. Today is Tuesday, May 28th, 2019, the day after Memorial Day. Memorial Day in Brooklyn turned out to be sunny and beautiful, all things considered that there are major storms across the country right now, flooding across many states, tornadoes, all the climate change I talked about in recent years. It's coming to pass, almost as if one could call it flood stories. Okay, but flood stories take us back to the beginning. I want to talk a little bit about what I experienced on Memorial Day. I met a former soldier named Gerardo who let me wear his hat. I post some pictures on that. And we got to talking about things political and things military. Most of what he told me as far as the military goes is the plight of people in the military who you don't really see all the things that are going on behind the scenes. They tell you what they want to tell you. They tell you what they feel comfortable telling you. You've seen these stories on the news. You know they're hiding what's deep down inside. Men who come home from service and women who come home from service and they're pretty much broken. You know, they'll go for help. But there's something wrong, there's something missing. Yesterday there were a lot of stories like this on TV, as well as something else I found very interesting. On the news, they said that Arlington National Cemetery is pretty well full, like 400,000 people who lost their lives serving the country, 624 acres, and I don't know how they're going to resolve that. They did show a cemetery, a service, by the cemetery for all these amazing people who have given their service through centuries, actually, at this point, because humans go to war. Humans seem to be programmed to need to do battle. There's a self-destructive side. Not even because you're mentally ill, but by the time you come back, if you do have any mental illness, that becomes exacerbated and goes into the PTSDs and the inability to function in today's world. And all I see on the news is soldiers who are broken and should be getting a certain amount of time and attention from the military, and they're not. We read about all the things that are going to get done, but that goes into all the political stuff. And whatever politicians say, there were speeches yesterday. They say what they hope for. They say what you want to hear. They say a lot of things, okay? And can they get it done is very different than making promises. I mean, I don't know. We have, I think, 20-something candidates running for President of the United States in the Democratic ticket, and they're saying pretty much the same thing with different variations on how they think they're going to go about getting it done. I don't really follow politics, but I listen a little here, a little there, because it's kind of shoved in your face. You can't put on the TV at all without seeing good old Trump's face and all the blunders he's doing. And don't get mad at me. It is who he is. It's how he's programmed. Yesterday I met a military man, and we walked around the field and we walked through this area where there's two plaques in the front with the names of all the fallen from this area of Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, and there's flags all along, very close. I don't think the cemetery, they're not buried there, but there are flags representing each of these men, and this stays up all year long. It's not just done for Memorial Day and 4th of July. It's always there if you come to Bay Ridge, and it's called John Paul Jones Park. It's right outside of Fort Hamilton. This whole area has a feeling and a vibe. It goes back to the American Revolution, and George Washington, I'm told, came through, and there's a big giant obelisk, and there's things carved and engraved all over. As a psychic and a medium, do I feel this when I walk through? Frankly, no. I've never met George Washington and his crew. I've never met any of the famous people who allegedly came through here. Not really. Yesterday when I walked through this field with this soldier named Gerardo, I had no sense of spirits that were screaming out at me and shouting at me, you know, and tell the war to stop. None of that kind of thing. It was just this feeling of humanity is just repeating the same old self-destructive patterns. No matter who's calling the shots, no matter who thinks they're doing it for noble cause, they're just doing the same things over and over again. And of course I don't think it's right. Who would think this is right, you know? So anyway, he and I walked around and we took some pictures and we did a little video. And then I started talking to some of the women who I would say were probably in my age group. And I'm 76. And I was born in World War II. I remember Korea when I was a little girl, and we used to have shelter drills under the desk, and we wore dog tags. But I remember a lot of the wars. I remember Vietnam, let's burn our bras. Why not just don't wear them anymore? I think they're silly pieces of clothing anyway. And, you know, I remember all of the wars. I've been very lucky in that anybody who was very close to me never died in war, but I have read people who have lost others in war, on 9/11, in law enforcement. So I do understand emotionally what everybody is going through. It's sad. Are we supposed to be sad? We're humans, so yeah, I guess we're supposed to be in turmoil and chaos and broken and sad. Unfortunately, I don't know. That's not how I like to live my life, but we don't really get much choice. So anyway, he and I walked around and I met some very, very nice women whose husbands had died in Vietnam. And they were showing me, you know, the husbands' names on these plaques and charts and, you know, telling me some of them have moved forward in their lives. And others actually who had had a child or two, they remain stuck. They still live in the same place. Their children have long grown up and they have children. And there's this, like, when their husband died, they sort of died with them. Some of them who had husbands who came back who were broken and then eventually got things like Agent Orange and they died of the cancers. And you know the history of how bad these wars are and what men bring home with them emotionally and physically. It's not really the reality we want to live in, but it's the reality we're stuck in. I also spoke to people who were very, very patriotic, okay? They believe in country, they believe in the flag, they believe in a lot of things that probably most people do, and I don't. I'll tell you in a second what I believe in, but you probably know. But you know, they're just there and they're mourning. You don't just mourn the person who died, who was in the military. You also mourn everybody else around you. It's like getting a divorce. When you get a divorce, you're not just mourning your divorce, you're mourning all the other bad relationships you ever had, okay? It's like all of that compounds itself. So there were a lot of tears and people who was saying things like, how can we go home and have a barbecue when we're sitting here, you know, reminiscing about all of that. Everybody's different. Some of us can let go, and others are going to remain stuck in whatever traumatic thing happened in their lives. It goes across the board on that one. So now we get to the podium, and they set up this whole big podium, and there are people from the military who made their speeches and whatever, and then there were the politicians, okay? I'm not political. I'm not into any of this stuff, okay? But I have to tell you, the political people, be they formerly in office or candidates who are going to run, no matter who they are, it's like they're stuck in the same, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to fix this. I'm going to fix that. I'm going to make this better. I understand what you're all going through. I'm going to fight for this. I'm going to fight for that. Vote for me. Okay? They all say the same thing. We got 20 plus Democrats out there. They tweak what they want in different ways, but basically they're all saying the same thing. Everybody says the same thing. Even Trump said it when he was running. I'm going to do this. I'm going to fix immigration. I'm going to fix all these things. You can't fix things that are not programmed to be fixed. You just can't. Okay, so that gets to the nature of reality. Reality, in my perception, which I'll probably say in all the videos from now on, is a holographic simulation. It's called simulation theory, the holographic universe, any of those names that you want to attribute to it. The indigenous people called it a dream, an illusion. It's not real. You can cite 1,000 different ways that it shows itself not to be real. It had a beginning, it has an end, and everything that you are experiencing in your life, whether you're in the military, whether you're political, whether you're just a nice person who stays home and raises their family or takes care of other people in the family, whoever you are, a caretaker, a businessman, whoever and whatever you're doing, this is a simulation, and there's no running away from the fact that it's ending. And as it ends, there was an interesting article I put on my blog today called Burnout. And what they have decided, this is a CNN article, is that they've made burnout a medical term now. For years, I have been talking to people and I look at pictures when I do readings of people they're connected to, and I'll say, this one's burnt out, that one's burnt out, everyone's burnt out, okay? You burn out in different ways, emotionally, physically, financially. However, climate change is, if you don't get climate change is wiping out the world, I don't know what to tell you. In my terminology of the hologram, of the simulation, it's not the planet that's going to end. It's not any specific layer or dimension, and we are absolutely not evolving out of physical reality with our ego identity. Ellie is Ellie, and whoever you are. We are not evolving to a fourth dimension, a fifth dimension. No, all of that metaphysical stuff is just things to make you feel like, oh, well, okay, you know, we're evolving now, so everything is going to be just great and hunky-dory. It doesn't work that way. It's not that way. It's simply a simulation, like the Matrix, okay? When it reaches its 0 point, when it's finished, it fades to black and it's done. Who are we in it? We're projected illusion in it. Am I projected illusion? You, everybody you know? Yes. We're having an experience in physical reality. I call it a biogenetic experiment. Some people link that to aliens. Some people link it to anything, government-contrived programs. You can link it to anything you want. But at the end of the day, this is a hologram, okay? Now, taking this to my friend Gerardo, one thing we did agree on, okay, with this experiment is someone or some group put Trump into place. When he came down the escalator, I said he's going to be the next president. I just saw it. I just knew it. Okay, why? Because we're going into chaos. We're living in chaos, and who can create better chaos than Trump? And don't start writing me nasty little messages about, no, look what he's done for the country. He's going to have to do some good things for them to keep him in place. Somebody put Trump in place. We thought it was to take down secret societies, take down secret organizations, to get rid of, not to create even more ridiculous scenarios. But it doesn't matter. You can follow it on a daily basis or not follow it at all, because we have no control over it. So Gerardo and I agree that somebody wants to keep Trump in place. And I think I don't think he's going to be impeached, definitely not this year. And if these or people or persons or groups or cabals or whatever they are really have that in mind, there is nothing that anybody can do to get him out of office, short of shooting him, and he'd survive it anyway, I'm sure, you know? And I honestly, as a psychic, I do not predict him being assassinated. Let's get that clear. But anyway, we go to the military, we go to whatever, and Oh, it's just all predestined and pre-planned, and you can do battle with whoever. You can go on social media to look for that fight every day. Like, oh, Ellie said this, Ellie said that. She thinks Trump this, she thinks that one's that. What can I say? Trump is a guy my age from Queens, which is like 20 minutes from where I live, okay? So we sort of come from some things in commonality, and I do see that in him, but he's also in my age group. And that means you do have to look a little bit for senior thoughts, senior moments, you know. I mean, I know he says that he's a genius, a perfect genius, may I add. But, you know, then you go to all the narcissistic things. It's been his presidency has allowed for a lot of people to waste and spend a lot of energy just trying to figure him out, figure out the people who surround him, and now comes the impeachment time, should they be able to do it. This could easily take to Election Day next year. If the Democrats don't find one strong candidate, Trump's back again, and most of the psychics I know believe he's coming back and he's going to win again. So, I don't know. You know, with me, I go year to year. I never know when something major is going to happen on this planet, and that's going to be the end of it. But in the meantime, we leave off with Memorial Day. It was an interesting experience. I've lived here for 28 years, and I've been to 28 Memorial Days. Usually there's a little more fanfare, and there's more political people, like the mayor used to come all the time, but it is what it is. You know, you just got to say that about life. Everything's changing, everything's evolving. It was a nice day. I hope you enjoyed it. For the people across the country who are living in this is flood stories. They're living in flood stories. We are definitely going back to the beginning, but who are living in floods and tornadoes, and they just keep coming and coming and coming. My heart really does go out to you. I hope you find some safety and some security, and I thank you all for listening to this. To be continued.